Tuesday, November 19th, 2019. This meeting is now called to order. Mr. Executive Director.
Yes, sir. First we have the roll call.
Commissioner Walker.
Present.
Commissioner Merritt.
Present.
Commissioner Villabisier.
Present.
Commissioner Deloge.
Here.
Commissioner Dozier.
Here.
Commissioner Maddox. Commissioner Minor.
Here.
Commissioner Matlow.
Here.
Commissioner Richardson.
Here.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a couple of agenda modifications, but since we have some folks that want to speak on some items, I'd like to move item 7E, the bike ped master plan, up to 7B, and then item 7H, the Woodville Highway discussion, up to item 7C, and just shift everything down after that.
Could you say that again, please, Mr. Executive?
Sure. 7E, move to 7B, and then 7H to 7C.
H to C. Okay.
Right, this
Okay, at this point, we would like to entertain speakers for non-agenda item, and
these are actually
these are agendaed.
yes.
Okay.
At this point, we don't have anyone signed.
Do we have no one signed up for a non-agenda item?
I move consent approval.
There is a motion and a second to approve consent agenda. All in favor, show by the sign of vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next item.
Item 6 will be an amendment to our fiscal year 2024 Transportation Improvement Program. As you'll recall, this is an amendment to the TIP, so it is a roll call vote. Mr. Burke.
Good afternoon, members. We are amending the TIP to reflect the receipt of design funding for the widening of I-10 from the Gadsden-Leon County line eastward towards Capitol Circle Northwest.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, show by the sign of vote aye.
Aye.
Roll call vote, right?
It's a roll call.
Yeah, I'm
It's a
sorry.
roll
Thank
call.
you.
Excuse me.
Commissioner Walker.
Yes. Approve.
Commissioner Merritt.
Aye.
Commissioner Villabisier.
Aye.
Commissioner Deloge.
Aye.
Commissioner Dozier.
Aye.
Commissioner Maddox. Not yet. Commissioner Minor.
Aye.
Commissioner Matlow.
Aye.
Commissioner Richardson.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Aye.
Unanimously passes.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Next item.
Yes. Item 7A is a presentation on the MCORS process. As you recall, earlier this year, the legislature passed a bill directing work to be done on 3 particular corridors throughout the state. Those included one in Southwest Florida, the extension of the Turnpike, and also the extension of the Suncoast corridor, the Suncoast Parkway from Citrus County up to Jefferson County. Today we have representatives from DOT, Office of Policy Planning? Systems Planning. I knew I was going to get that wrong. But they're going to give you a presentation and entertain any questions on this process. Before we get started also, Commissioner Dozier is the CRTPA's representative on the task force for the Suncoast extension. Mr. Rito is the RPC's representative, and Ms. Barfield, who's not here today, is Jefferson County's representative.
All right, you ready? All right, well, first of all, let me say thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to the group today. My name is Chris Edmonston. I am the manager of the Systems Implementation Office with the Florida Department of Transportation. I was asked to come and give you guys a update, a high-level overview of the MCORS program, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. On May 17, 2019, Governor DeSantis signed Senate Bill 7068, authorizing the creation of the multi-use corridors of regional economic significance program with an FDOT at the department. This is a major initiative, as you could imagine, probably one of the biggest initiatives that we've undertaken since the construction of the interstates or the Florida Turnpike. So just to kind of dive into the purpose of the M4S program, first and foremost, we want to be able to protect the environment and natural resources of the state of Florida and encourage job creation and economic development. Also, one of the key features is to enhance quality of life and public safety. And really, another major theme is to revitalize rural communities, both through economic development and the provision of infrastructure. And finally, providing regional connectivity while leveraging technology. The objective of the program is to advance construction of regional corridors that are intended to accommodate multiple modes of transportation and multiple types of infrastructure. You can see here on the slide, these are the project goals. The intended benefits of the project are to improve hurricane evacuation, provide congestion mitigation, trade and logistics, broadband, water and sewer connectivity, energy distribution, leveraging technology such as autonomous, connected, shared, and electric vehicles, provide for other transportation modes such as shared use non-motorized trails, freight and passenger rail, and public transit. And again, the protection and enhancement of wildlife corridors and environmentally sensitive areas is key to the program, as well as the protection of primary springs protection zones and farmland preservation areas. So the study areas, as you see on the map here, there are 3 study areas with which FDOT is assigned with assembling task forces. There's the Suncoast connector, which extends from Citrus County to Jefferson County. There's the Northern Turnpike connector, which extends from the northern terminus of Florida's Turnpike northwest to the Suncoast Parkway. And there's the Southwest Central Florida connector, which extends from Collier County to Polk County. Obviously, the Suncoast connector is what you guys are most interested in, as it directly impacts the CRTPA. So the Suncoast Corridor Study Area extends from Citrus County to Jefferson County, which is approximately 150 miles. The study area covers 8 counties: Citrus, Levy, Gilchrist, Dixie, Lafayette, Taylor, Madison, and Jefferson County. There are two counties that overlap with the Northern Turnpike connector, and that would be the Citrus and Levy County areas. Organizationally, this is how the department is laid out. The responsibilities from the bill: each corridor has a chair, a co-chair, and a production lead. The corridor teams are supported by key staff in central office and the districts. So for the Suncoast Corridor Task Force, the planning of this corridor is being led by the task force in coordination with FDOT. The task force is comprised of representatives from state agencies, local governments, MPOs, community, and environmental groups. Task force members were named on August the 1st. The Suncoast Connector Task Force Chair is District 2 Secretary Greg Evans, and the co-chair is the District Director of Operations for District 3, Jason Peters, and the production lead is Ryan Asmus, also out of District 2 in Lake City. As was mentioned, the CRTPA is represented by Kristin Dozier, and we appreciate the participation in this very important task force. To lay out how the bill requires that we utilize an inclusive consensus building process to identify opportunities. And the planning of these corridors is being carried out through the work of the task force, as well as public involvement and supporting technical analysis. The key steps in the planning process, it's really threefold, is to explore, so that's to document and analyze existing and future conditions along the corridor and identify considerations for what we should avoid, minimize, mitigate, and enhance during the process. During the evaluation stage, we identify potential guiding principles for avoidance, minimization, mitigation, and enhancement, and review potential corridor opportunities consistent with these principles. Ultimately, in the recommend stage, the guiding principles for the process, or it provides the guiding principles for the process moving forward, plus some thought regarding to which opportunities are ready to move into project development, which need more study, and which should no longer be pursued because they do not support the principles of the task force. As always, public engagement is encouraged throughout the entire process. So looking at the task force work plan, meeting 1 was primarily organizational. That was in Tampa back in August. We've had meeting 2 in October, and the December and February meetings grouped together, the task forces will be focused on identifying key areas that the corridor should avoid entirely or where impact should be minimized. It's also charged in these meetings with developing guiding principles for how these considerations should be addressed in corridor planning and development. The task forces during these 3 meetings will also begin to discuss a very high-level purpose and need for each corridor. In meetings 5 through 7, which are in March, April, and June, the task forces will shift to mitigation and enhancement opportunities and work through a similar process to discuss considerations, develop guiding principles, and review potential corridor opportunities. I want to point out for corridor opportunities, we mean swaths on a map, not lines. The lines are covered through the PD&E process. That is where you'll get a preferred alternative from the department. The task forces will also start to identify potential implementation actions, and there will be additional community open houses throughout. In the final 2 meetings in July and September, the task force is charged with focusing on the development of the task force report, which is due to the governor and the legislature in October of 2020. Again, I want to stress that public engagement opportunities will be available throughout the process. There's a public comment stations at all of the task force meetings, as well as a public comment period on the agenda of all of the task force meetings, and we encourage public involvement. Also, I mentioned the community open houses. Those will be happening. They started in October and will be going through June. We will have a number of briefings such as this to regional and local partner organizations, and we encourage communication 24/7 through our website, floridamcors.com. We also have a dedicated email address, fdotlistens@dot.state.fl.us. Just to discuss some of the program funding, the legislature authorized funding for the projects in these corridors. Part of the funding is coming from the General Revenue Fund and being redirected to the State Transportation Trust Fund. By fiscal year 2023, MCORS will receive about $100 million per year. The bill also includes supplements to other programs as well. Beginning in this current fiscal year for us, fiscal year 2020, the Small County Road Assistance Program and the Small County Outreach Program will each receive $10 million per year with a preference to projects in counties impacted by hurricanes. Beginning in fiscal year 23, $35 million per year will go to the Florida Turnpike Enterprise with a preference for feeder roads and interchanges. And also, finally, the Workforce Development Program is funded at $2.5 million a year for the next 3 years. Here's the program schedule. I mentioned earlier, the governor signed the bill into law May 17th, 2019. To the maximum extent feasible, construction of these projects shall begin no later than December 31st, 2022, with the corridors open to traffic no later than December 21st, 2030. The schedule will require an innovative approach in project delivery. So how does MCORS affect the CRTPA? The MCORS study areas and impacted MPOs on this map are color-coded by LRTP adoption cycles. The study area intersects 9 MPOs, as you can see on the slide. The Suncoast connector area touches the CRTPA jurisdiction. Also note on the slide, the CRTPA LRTP is due in November next year. We're developing guidance at the department for MPOs to incorporate into their LRTPs regarding MCORS. We'll be providing that guidance soon. The guidelines will contain generic language for your cost-feasible long-range transportation plans and unfunded needs plans. It will also provide an MCORS program summary and corridor-specific information, if applicable. I may want to make note, this topic was also discussed at the Metropolitan Organization Advisory Council meeting last month. So I would encourage that you visit our website, floridamcors.com. The website has information regarding the corridors themselves, the task forces, and task force meeting materials, and is updated regularly. You can also sign up for updates and provide public comment directly through the website. So with that, have any questions.
Wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you. Mr. Edmonds, right?
Edmonston.
Yes.
Yep.
You said you were asked to present. Are folks presenting at all of the MPOs?
Upon
affected?
request, yes.
Upon request, okay. So I just wanted to get clarity there. So for my colleagues, I have attended 2 meetings so far. We had one in August and one in November, or late October, I should say. And I want to stress, I cannot stress enough how hard FDOT staff is working to put this process together. This was really a huge lift on your part. So, and Secretary Peters and Evans both are doing a great job, as is all the staff. So thank you for that.
We appreciate
this
it.
is something that we all had to take on this year, and so I want to recognize that. And that is also to say we should distinguish any concerns, from my perspective, about the road, about the route, from the task that's been laid at FDOT's feet. So I think that's kind of gotten a little muddied. With that, this is, having served on this board for 9 years, this is an extraordinary process. To look at PD&E concurrent to developing the guiding principles, this is not how, forgive me, but I was trained by our MPO AC, thank you. Yes, the MPO AC and others. This is really different. And so it is a struggle for a lot of the board members there to even raise questions and kind of get into this process. So that's just, I just wanted to share those couple of thoughts. But a very specific question here I had not heard at the meetings is about the language for our long-range transportation plan. So this consensus building process is rather unique, and we haven't dug into it all that much. So there's a lot of unknowns here. But what I'm hearing is that we get language and a cost impact that we will be required to insert into our long-range transportation plan, or how is that working with a local elected body? I'm just curious.
So we had gotten quite a few requests from MPOs around the state who are in the process of updating their LRTPs about how do they acknowledge MCORs if it's in their area. I don't believe that you're going to have to put anything in there, but we will provide you with language that outlines the program and how it impacts your specific area. And if you choose to put that in there, that's up to the MPO or TPA.
So should the state choose to move forward with the route, regardless of any other questions here locally, and it impacts Jefferson County, are we going to get some direction? I mean, we have to have something in that long-range transportation plan in order for it to be funded, and yet the funding is outlined in legislation. So this part could also look very different,
right,
meaning it may be funded even if it's not in our plan. Is that possible?
Yeah, and the department will work with you as you start to develop. And you probably have already started to look at your LRTP. And as you look at that, work with the districts, and we can work with, from central office perspective, Mark Reichert, who's our MPO representative in our Office of Policy Planning. He's going to be the one coordinating, getting the language out to our districts, and they'll work with you guys to get that information to you.
Okay. Well, once again, I appreciate all the efforts on the part of you and everyone else at DOT. I will, as always, I said it before Commissioner Merritt here, asking a lot of questions at the board meetings, and Commissioner Barfield is as well, and Ms. Rito is as well. So we'll stay very engaged and look forward to more information coming.
Yeah, and we really do appreciate it, and the feedback and the input is very helpful through the task force.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
If you're in the military, but echelons above corps comes to mind with me as a good analogy. You know, the MPOs are the corps, and you guys are going to not, we can be in your plan or not, but you're going to do it, basically, I guess, pull down. For those that serve in the military.
Yes,
I'm filling in for
Echelons.
Steve Barfield.
okay.
Steve Walker,
Is that,
Jefferson County Commissioner.
is that Walker? Commissioner Walker?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm seeing Randy Merritt, and
That's a,
I was going to say, what's going on?
I'm in two places.
Yeah.
We're going to be taking this up at our commission meeting Thursday night. We have two different language documents, and because there's a lot of concern in Jefferson County how it's going to impact our county. And we're going to be debating it at the county commission meeting to see if we might could get something officially. That way the county commission's got an official document on their side of what we want to do with this. I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Appreciate that.
Yes, Commissioner Deloge.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to echo some of the comments Commissioner Dozier said that and let me start off by saying in full disclosure, I'm doing some work with Atkins, who is the owner's rep on this. I've talked to legal counsel here, and I've talked to legal counsel at the county, and in both cases, they said you should disclose, you don't have to recuse. There's not a vote here. I'm not a Jefferson County commissioner, so it's not appropriate. I will tell you that to echo what Commissioner Dozier said, they have a process that has not been done before, and this is a transformational project in our state, and I think for any county at this point to say, no, we don't want it, is probably a little premature. That's one man's opinion, and I'll just voice that. I spent last week with the clerk of Madison County, and they have made it abundantly clear that they would love to see it there. I can tell you from a Leon County perspective, having Jefferson County participate to some degree would be a huge win, just from an overflow standpoint. So I just put that out there because this is the body, and although Madison County is not represented here, Jefferson County is, and certainly Leon County, it's a rising tide type of thing, and as long as the tide's not too far away, I think we all stand to benefit. But it's a huge project that I don't think we've seen in most of our lifetimes. So, thank you.
Mr. Chair, one quick comment.
Yes, Commissioner Dozier, you're recognized.
Thank you. I appreciate the follow-up, and I'll be looking for a readout of your conversation, Commissioner Walker, on Thursday. I'm sure it will be robust. I think it may be important just to share my perspective, some of the questions that I've had, but I think this is, it is fair to say that a lot of folks on our Suncoast task force have been asking similar questions, that for our portion of this, 19 and 98 is not at capacity. And it looks very, very different than what we see in South Florida. And there are issues along that existing corridor, flooding and others. So aside from the environmental concerns of building a new road and other things impacting current transportation maintenance needs is a concern that we've raised. But I think that, to your point, Commissioner Deloge, my hope is that we get a lot of data and a discussion. I welcome the opportunity to sit with our colleagues from this quarter, from Citrus North, and talk about this. If we can get improvements, and I will reserve judgment on the toll road. For my part, right now, I am not seeing a need to build a brand new parallel corridor. But if we could get improvements that meet the goals of the legislature and the governor, to improve utilities, to improve access and trails and things like that, and put some money into the existing corridor. And if some communities wanted to bypass, that may be in the works as well. I think this process could produce a good product in the sense of data and kind of analysis of where we are. I wanted to voice the concern that a brand new toll road, given the low level of traffic that we're seeing on the existing Suncoast and north of that on 19 and the existing needed maintenance, that's a really hard thing to kind of square in my mind. So that's really what I'm looking at in these meetings going forward is, can we keep getting data that will help us while really making sure that we're not harming ourselves in the future by putting all of our eggs in one basket. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Walker.
Glad you brought that up because that's one of our things we're looking at in Jefferson County. We've got 19 and 27 that goes south, and there's hardly any traffic on it at this point. I mean, it's a pretty straight shot. And actually, if you advertised it, if you got off Interstate 10 at 19 and hit 19 and 27, it's about 35 miles short of doing that than it is going around the existing interstates. And that's one of the concerns. If you pencil in another road, in Jefferson County, you don't see that big of a traffic issue, and you just don't know if another road's going to help it or hurt the county. Right. It's kind of.
Okay, commissioners. Okay, Mr. Executive Director, you recognized.
Follow up on Commissioner Dozier's question in regards to the long-range plan. As Chris mentioned, I believe ours is due to be adopted in November of next year, but keep in mind that probably the work will be substantially wrapped up on the plan, let's say in August. And Chris, based on what you said, I think probably the department's going to be more in that swath stage, I'll call it. So typically what I've seen in the past, and depending on what the board decides, as it relates to the long-range plan, we would probably include that swath as part of the long-range plan and not necessarily a normal type route. It would be, again, that swath that at least denotes, something is planned for this, but at the time, it's not refined enough for us to put a lot of detail to it.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And wouldn't it be that the PD&E would determine the exact route?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, nothing would be concluded until the PD&E was done anyway, so.
And I believe, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, you have consultants selected, but they're not under contracts with the PD&E, has not.
I can't speak to the procurement. I know that the advertisement is out. I'm not sure if the selections have been made.
Okay.
I can follow up with you on that,
Okay.
though.
There's somewhere in that early stages, selection or whatever, on the PD&E consultant.
Right. Okay.
Given the time frame, there's going to have to be some some overlap, I guess you would say, between planning and PD&E.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I was going to leave, there's some informational pamphlets. I was just going to leave them on the back table for anybody that's interested.
Thank you much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Yolanda is just reminding me, everybody make sure you use your microphones. Folks are having trouble hearing in the back. Mine a little closer.
Greg, I see on the board outside, just asking, but isn't there another meeting scheduled at 3 for this room?
3:30, I think.
3:30?
Okay, I hope not, because I didn't see that.
It's on the board, so you might want to just keep that in mind.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We've got a lot of stuff to get through.
We have a loaded schedule, agenda today.
Well, Mr. Chairman, next up, as I said, we rearranged the agenda. Item 7E, the Tallahassee-Leon County Bicycle Pedestrian Master Plan, and Mr. Castro was our project manager on that, so he'll be introducing that.
Thank you. Commissioners, in the October retreat, we presented to you the update to the Bike and Ped Master Plan and gave you the process that we got to come to the level where we were selecting projects and looking at projects and costs. So where we're at today is we'll have John Sewell from Kimley Horn make a brief presentation on, and just a couple slides on the process and how we got here, more focused on the neighborhood network and the major projects in terms of costs and projects. So after that, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. The agenda item has a lot of material in terms of attachments for detailing the cost of the major projects and the neighborhood network. So with that, I'll turn it over to John, and if there's any questions, please ask.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, John Sewell with Kimley Horn. I think we gave a fairly thorough overview of this project at the retreat. I'm going to dive into a little bit more detail in some of the aspects of the plan. But basically, this project was a data-driven project that really looked at cycling characteristics, the PED network, the pedestrian network here in Tallahassee and Leon County. And we developed, for the first time in this area, bicycle comfort level analysis. It really looks at the comfort of facilities that people are walking and biking on. So we looked at the existing facilities, and we also looked at all of the projects that have been completed recently or that are currently in the works. We relied on stakeholder and public input throughout the process. We held a long series of meetings to make sure that we understood exactly all of the different aspects of the project. And then basically through all of that interaction, through the data and through working with the public and the stakeholders, we developed a set of recommendations, which I'm going to walk you through here now. It's basically 4 different types of recommendations in this plan, and we kind of talked about this at the retreat. An extensive list of sidewalks. There are still gaps out there. And, what we did was we prioritized those based on, is there a sidewalk coverage on at least one side of the road? And then we looked at certain high traffic areas where there really needs to be a sidewalk on the other side of the road if there's already a sidewalk on one side of the road. All of that's provided in a geographic information system. In addition to that, we looked at developing a series of minor projects. These minor projects are projects that we can get done within the next 3 years, 2 to 3 years, providing funding is there for the projects. This includes a neighborhood network for bicycles, and it also includes some critical crossings to accommodate that neighborhood network. We also looked at major projects. These are projects that are going to cost more money, but they'll have a much larger impact on the network. A couple of examples of this are Thomasville Road. ML King is another one that we identified as a really prime corridor for enhancements, but it's going to take a little bit more to get those projects done. And then lastly, big ideas, some kind of overarching recommendations that will help implement this plan over time. We evaluated the projects on 5 key criteria. Each project went through a vetting process, and these projects all went through the process, and these resulted in tiering the projects into 3 different tiers, which I'll talk about here in a minute. These included safety, multimodal connections and opportunities, equity, connectivity, and health. We also relied on some cost indices. This came from DOT's long-range estimating amounts, also other recently completed projects to get the most recent costs, unit costs for the different types of facilities that we'll be using to implement this plan, and those are listed here. So, kind of looking at the network, and I think there were a couple of questions at the retreat about what this network actually looks like. So this is actually what the existing facilities look like, the Tier 1 facilities that we would be adding. And I'm going to step you through this, and it's going to start to kind of make nonsense look like sense as we go through these slides. So this is Tier 1 projects. These are the projects that we're recommending happening first. And you'll see these overlaid with the other tiers and the existing facilities that will build out and show you the final recommended network. So adding Tier 2 projects, you see that there's more connectivity and different facilities being added on to the Tier 1 projects. And again, these are bicycle facilities. Adding in the Tier 3 projects, so now you've got the blue, the green, and the yellow. So now you start to see these projects kind of start to build a network. And then here's the costs overall for these projects, the neighborhood network with the costs over to the right with a 20% contingency built in for all 3 of the tiers. So for Tier 1, you're looking at a cost of less than $3 million. Tier 2, about $1 million, and Tier 3, about $200,000. So the total for the network is about $4 million. And again, these are the low-hanging fruit. These are the things that are going to have the biggest impact on mobility. Now, when we add in the major project, I'm sorry,
John, can I ask
Sure.
a question, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Dozier.
Forgive me, at the retreat, I thought you said this was 5.4, 5.5 million, so that's been refined?
It's been refined based on updated costs.
Okay, so
Yes.
it's cost of construction, it's not a change to
It is, that is the cost,
network,
including, yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Thank you, I was paying attention.
Good. You did pay attention. That's great. So here's the major projects. There's a series of projects: Oak Ridge Road, Thomasville Road, Tram Road. You can see that these are kind of very equitably, I would say, spread out across the city and the county. And you'll notice that there aren't really any major projects in the urban core of Tallahassee because there is actually a fairly good grid network there already. So these projects, as I said earlier, would have a major impact on connectivity. And I just kind of offer up a couple of them, but frankly, Thomasville Road and the Oak Ridge and Tram Road would be some great examples of those. And this is the Tier 2 major projects, kind of adding in a few projects. You see US 90 connecting out to Jefferson County, continuing a couple of the other corridors, and just kind of adding to the network. And then Tier 3 adding these in. And again, these are going to be projects that are going to be separated facilities not on a road. So these are going to be urban side paths, multi-use paths, widening existing sidewalks to a multi-use width. And then here are the costs. Now you see these costs go up dramatically because we're talking about much more significant projects. We're talking about projects on Thomasville Road where you're talking about moving utilities, moving curbs, moving drainage, and things like that. So it's a higher level of commitment, but as I said, a much higher level of connectivity. So Tier 1, 2, and 3 is listed here, with Tier 1 being about $18 million. We would suggest that Tier 1 be feasible within the next 5 years. And so the total cost of those is about $56 million. Now, when you throw all of those together on the map, this is the map that results from that. As you can see, for bicyclists in Tallahassee and Leon County, you end up with a network, and this network is really geared towards all users. The previous plan that was developed here about 15 years ago was mainly geared towards more proficient cyclists. So this network will have a much bigger impact on the community here in Tallahassee and Leon County. So these are project sheets that were developed for each one of the projects, and it includes a lot of detail about each project, what the goal of the project is, what it will achieve, what the next steps are, what the costs are, the lengths. And these project sheets are what you all, your staff, will use to actually implement the projects and assign funding to each one of the projects. Here's another example of a major project. This is Thomasville Road. We're recommending for Thomasville Road, the next step on this project would be a feasibility study. So this kind of concludes the presentation, but I'd like to leave you with a few overall plan recommendations. One of the things that we talked about at the retreat is we talked about the need to carry this plan on and the need to kind of look at this plan on a quarterly, a monthly basis, an annual basis, and come back and provide an overall progress report to the CRTPA board about implementation. To do that, we're recommending establishing a bicycle and pedestrian technical committee. Now, I would say that this committee, in a way, kind of already existed because these are the prime stakeholders that we use to develop this project. So we worked, the CRTPA team worked very carefully with the City of Tallahassee's Public Works Department, the county's Public Works Department, and Blueprint 2000. So that's a key recommendation. For users to actually use this, it was made very clear that mapping needed to be something that was important. So we're recommending a mobile app at some point in the future and possibly some static maps. The major connections, we're looking at in the plan to connect to other parts of the CRTPA region, up to the north, to Quincy, to Havana, and there's a series of recommendations that gets us to those connections. This is going to require comprehensive plan amendments to the transportation element, CIP element. As we understand, your comprehensive plan is being discussed right now for an overhaul, and this is the perfect timing to incorporate this into that process. Data collection will continue to have to be something that is updated on a regular basis to monitor progress over time for this plan, and so that needs to be something that's considered in your future planning. And we also believe that a public education campaign, once these projects reach a certain implementation level, is going to be important to educate the public about the benefits, the safety, and the connectivity of this network. And with that, I'd be glad to kind of talk about any questions you have, just next steps. Acceptance by City Commission, we're going to present, or it will be provided to the City Commission, the Board of County Commissioners for Leon County, and then just continue to implement through your city and county departments.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Commissioner Deloge, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is great stuff. Thank you. And this is, I basically self-selected myself to come back on the MPO or CRTPA so that I could try and drive some of this. The one thing I see that's missing, though, we talked, and since this is the regional transportation group, can we talk a little bit about regional connectivity? And it seems, I know you talked a little bit about the comp plan. I'm a little vague on how that happens. But if if we can connect to Monticello and Jefferson County by shared use path, not by a side, a lane on the side of a road, if we can connect to Havana, if we can connect to St. Mark's, and there's funding out there that we're not tapping into today, that's state-driven transportation dollars that we have access to. Can you talk to that a little bit? Because I think that's a missing part of this.
Yeah, so go ahead, Greg.
I was going to say, I want to touch on real quick before John does. Now, keep in mind, what we're requesting today is an approval of the list of projects. We will still have to come back to you probably in the February-March timeframe to finalize adoption of the plan. We've actually been working on that very thing that lays out those regional connections. It just wasn't ready today.
Second.
Well, we've got some public comments.
We got some public speakers.
Can I expand on that just for a second, Dr. V, while I have the floor? I realize some of these, from a connectivity standpoint, are bigger projects than maybe we could tackle today. But this group could certainly say, let's do the PD&E side of it, or at least the front-end stuff of it, so that if we can find the funding, then we have, because we'll go to the front of the line. So if we can take these gaps we've got in a couple of those, and it's not that hard to figure out where they are, but if you can figure out where they are and prioritize them and say, we've already done the design work, we've already done the planning work, we just need to figure out how to construct.
So real quick,
Well, I was going to say just real quick, Commissioner, this is a working draft, I guess I'll call it, that Jack's put up on the screen of that regional connectivity.
Okay.
And like I said, we didn't present it today because it's not quite final.
Okay. I'll just finish by saying that's what I want to have somehow integrated into what you've got here today.
And that's in the plan, and I think a great example of that is the connection up to Monticello via US 90. The feasibility study for that is actually underway right now.
Okay.
And that would be a multi-use path along 90 all the way out to Monticello.
Good. If I may take a personal opportunity before I recognize Commissioner Richardson and Commissioner Dozier. As a matter of fact, the regional connectivity of the back path and back trail was going to be a part of my personal comment and request for Gaston County. I will say, since we're working on a master plan, I would like for us to very, very seriously consider Gaston County in the regional connectivity of the back trail and back path. Thank you, Commissioner Deloge, for actually emphasizing that. So I think that takes out one of my comments at the end of the meeting. Now, Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two things. One is, there is so much back and forth between those communities, between Leon and Jefferson, Leon and Gadsden. It makes sense that connectivity exists. And then the other question that I had, e-scooters and e-bikes are a relatively new creation in our community. Will these sidewalk projects accommodate that new form of transportation that we are likely to adopt for our community?
Yeah, and it's a great question, and it came up actually at the retreat. So I think our response to that is it's still in pilot project form at the moment, and I understand that that's been extended. What we would suggest on that is as that continues to evolve, that the technical committee that we're recommending can continue to work to kind of ensure that gets integrated. But it was a little bit early for us to really make recommendations on that since it was a pilot project at the time. We didn't want to invest public dollars in something that may not happen. I would suggest that in time, yes, it could accommodate it, given certain parameters and limitations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Dozier.
Mr. Chair, you said we have public comment?
Yes, we have two speakers to stand up.
I can wait for public comment.
Okay. Okay. At this point, I'm going to recognize Mary Kay Falconer.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Before you start, Ms. Falconer, please let us be aware that we are limited to 3 minutes of public comments. So
absolutely.
You are recognized.
Mary Kay Falconer, 2140 Armistead Road. Two things I'd like to share with you right now. One is an example of an e-scooter that's sitting over there that is not the city scooter program, the pilot program. This is owned by me. I bought it in February and have been testing that model since that time. I use it about 5 times a week. It is very dependable. It's affordable. It cost me about $375. And so I'm just bringing that to your attention as another option for e-vehicles. The other point is the measurement of the master plan and whether or not it's making an impact. I'm also a member of the CMAC, the Citizens Multimodal Advisory Committee, and I'm not speaking for them, but one thing I raised at the last meeting, and of course we're very supportive of the master plan, is to develop a robust methodology to measure the impact of the plan and determine if there is a change in multimodal transportation in the communities. Those are the 2 points.
Thank you.
Okay. The second speaker I have here is Peter Rasulov.
Before I begin, I am actually listed there for 2 items. Do you want me to address both?
Yes, you know, I mean, you have 7E for now. When we get to 7H, you come back.
Okay.
I have both here.
So
Peter, put your name and address, too.
So my name is Peter Rasloff. I live at 116 West 6th Avenue. And overall, I want to say I'm in favor of the plan. There are a few issues I have. Okay, the timer's not started.
Wait.
So the big one is I don't think there's enough emphasis on the criteria for sorting the projects into tiers. I'm assuming, is that final? Has that been finalized yet? I'd like to see more emphasis on criteria, or rather, I'd like criterion added where we look at how new projects connect what we already have. So there's a list of bicycle comfort levels for all of our roads. And it looks like we have about 1,000 miles BCL4. So that's already close to half the city's road network already cyclable. I'd like to see projects that connect these roads that we already have put into higher tiers. Do you think that's possible? So I'd like for your team to consider that. And I also want, thanks for your comments, Commissioner.
Sure.
So I want to see long cycle journeys, long and useful cycle journeys and walking journeys become possible.
Perfect.
So you're thinking long range. I tend to think more in the medium range, but I think we agree on that issue. So that's all I have for you.
Okay,
I'll be back to talk about.
Yeah, we'll call you back for item 7H. I just got a speaker here, but it has, not you, sir. Thank you very much. Is Mr. Dale Allen for 7A or 7E?
It's this one.
Just this one.
He wants to speak on this one, I think.
On this one? Okay, because I have 7A.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. My name is Dale Allen. I'm a resident of Southwood, 3186 Behringer Hill Drive. And I want to thank you all for paying attention to this very, very important topic of our community. A number of months ago, I was asked to help develop some of the an idea for how we can better illustrate what we're attempting to do in our community. And I've been working on this through an organization called the Florida Greenways and Trails Foundation. And I would like to share with you kind of a vision map that we've developed as part of this. Oftentimes, the very complexity of what we're attempting to do makes it difficult for the average citizen to understand what we're trying to do and what the big vision that's unifying all our work together is. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to share with you the map. I've got some copies of the map. This is that I've developed that I'd like to pass around and let you look at. Yeah, and if I need more, I can get a few more. And tell you what this effort on our part is meant to be and not to be. Okay, first of all, we started on this project to try to bring some of the learning that we had experienced in Central Florida in developing a cross-state regional trail called the Coast to Coast Connector. That trail has proven to be very popular and extremely successful both locally and with the legislature, and it largely led to the development of a new program in the Department of Transportation called Sun Trails, a major new funding source for regional connectivity. This map that you're looking at, and which I'm going to hold up and show you a larger picture of, is not meant to be a substitute for the excellent work that Kimberly Horn has done for this master plan. It's an attempt to create an illustration for the average person or for an elected official who wants to communicate to their constituencies what we're trying to accomplish here in the greater four-county area. And this is part, I'm not sure where to stand to show you this. I hate to do this over your shoulders, but this is part of that larger vision, and it emphasized three primary corridors. One, which you all know we've completed, the Tallahassee to St. Mark's. It's in place. It's getting tremendous use. The other two build off of that corridor and come.
Sir?
Yes, sir.
Talk to the microphone.
I'm sorry.
Watching on TV.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. The other two corridors build off of that and start at the same beginning place. The historic Monticello Trail, which starts at Capitol Circle, utilizes the trail and eventually would connect. And a third one, also starting at Capitol Cascades Park, the Yellow Outline Trail that would also go to Havana. This is not what we're attempting to do here is illustrate this and make it easier for the average person to see the big picture goal of what we're attempting to do, and also to give our business leaders and some of our tourist marketing people a better sense of what we could look like in 20 or 30 years if we really put our mind to it and connect all these trails together. Again, this is meant to be complementary to, not and build on the excellent work of Kimberly Horn. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen. I have another speaker on this same item, Norman Skaggs. Will you please state your address and eventually maybe put your address on record?
Norma Skaggs, and I live at 733 Spiral Garden Way in Tallahassee, which is in southern Leon County. I live off of Oak Ridge Road, and I heard that mentioned. And I just wanted to impress how important it is to get something on Oak Ridge Road, a bike path, a trail. I know there's the Pine Flats Greenway that's proposed, and if that could get some priority funding, it would connect Woodville to the new roundabout at Waukulla Springs Road to Crawfordville Highway. There's a lot of people down there that walk and that bike because they have to. And Oak Ridge Road is really a safety hazard. It's a dangerous road. And if the priority could maybe go down to the south of the county, that would be just great. That's all I wanted to say. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Skaggs.
My motion stands, Mr. Chair, to approve the list.
There is a motion and a second to Commissioner Dozier.
Oh.
Are you going to make your, go ahead with your comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Very much appreciate the report, all the work that has been done. And this was, I guess, a question, comment about next steps. Some of the other things we talked about at the retreat, and we've also discussed at a subsequent county commission meeting regarding tourism, our TDC update, was a desire, I will speak for myself, but I think it was shared by some others, to have common signage. Some roads may be city, some roads may be county. If we have a consistent signage, a consistent approach to this, and in our maps and app development and other things in the future, that could be very beneficial. And I appreciate all the comments about the regional connectivity. I think, at least for CRTPA's purpose, if our other counties have a master plan, Dr. B, you mentioned the Gaston County plan is in development, making sure those are, at least acknowledged and connected to, I know our funding plan, our bike ped funding plan. Is that correct, Greg?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So with all of that, I guess I have a question about John's comment of coordination, and I'm not sure, John, if you need to jump back up, so you don't have to do that necessarily, but there you are. After approval by Leon and Tallahassee commissions, it would be left to coordinate and implement through our various departments. I'm wondering about the advisory committee recommendation and whether or not, and this may be a conversation to have at the city and county commission, but this is the opportunity to bring it up right now, to have a more strategic approach to this. I know you already have the evaluation criteria, but the funding could come through Blueprint, CRTPA, city, county, just really making sure that we are on the same page as we move forward in implementation. I can't imagine that wouldn't be the most efficient method, cost-wise and other. And I guess I would like to say it here that if that is something that City of Tallahassee and Leon County Commissions should consider, I would like to bring that up at the County Commission, and I would love our partners at the city to consider the same. Just finding a way to direct our staff to work together on this. Is there any problem with that, Greg, that you see, or should it run through CRTPA first, or am I on the right track?
And we've actually had a lot of conversation at the staff about how that would work. I think we'd like to come back kind of in that final wrap-up with a recommendation. Our thoughts on this was more this would be like a guiding, almost like an implementation committee. You know, we presented this in 3 tiers, so there's a lot of projects in those 3 tiers. Use that technical committee as kind of a guiding committee to flesh out a detailed implementation plan with the various sources of money that are available.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad I asked the question because I kept hearing tech committee, and that's normally an advisory role. I wasn't sure if that captured, and then that's why I picked up on, John, your comment about implementation through city and county departments.
And there's a lot of moving parts. You know, Blueprint has a pretty robust program. I know they're going to pull some projects out of this. We as a CRTPA have a fair amount of money, you know, that's available to be invested in this. But I think that was, again, the idea behind the committee was to have a technical, and we always want to call it a working group because I don't want to get it so formalized that you're having to do sunshine notices and things like that. Our thought was it was more just a working committee that would make recommendations to the various funding bodies.
I think the moment you make a recommendation, I believe Council Williams is going to say this, it becomes sunshine, but I'll let you all work that out. Do you need any further direction to ensure maximum coordination with City, County, Blueprint, CRTPA, or you feel like you have it?
I mean, like I said, like John mentioned, you know, the whole group's been working through the entire process here with fleshing this plan out.
Okay. This is just phenomenal progress. We want to keep it going, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Dozier. Commissioner Deloge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd echo a lot of what Commissioner Dozier said, but I want to make sure before we go, I'm fine with what's been presented, but we'll have a chance to integrate some of the regional connectivity ideas. Okay. I just want to.
Like I said, what you saw there earlier was kind of the rough outline of that, and some of that follows, because we've talked with Dale about this, some of that follows what's on his map.
Okay.
It just wasn't ready for prime time.
I don't want to be redundant, so I just want to make sure that that's cooked into what we're looking at. Okay, thank you.
Okay, there was a motion and a second, and all in favor show by the sign of vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Our next item, sir.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the next item is where we move item 7H up, the Woodville Highway update. At your last regular meeting in September, there was a presentation made regarding a different alternative for the Woodville Highway project. At the time, the board asked DOT to do some analysis on what was termed the people's choice. We have Rodney Chamberlain here from District 3. Is going to present the information that they developed, and this is going to follow what was in your included in your packet.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Rodney Chamberlain, Florida DOT. I'm the District Design Engineer, and I'm from Chipley, the District 3 Design Engineer, and I want to start today by giving a brief update on the status of the project. The Woodville Highway project, as we call it, is basically it's 2 projects. It's the loop in the northern part of the Woodville Highway and the 4-laning of the Woodville Highway to the south. We were asked, as Greg mentioned, at the last regular hearing by the Commission to go back and look at the People's Choice and compare it with the current loop alternative that we're in design. As a result of that, we went and looked through the loop alternative. We also went back and looked at what we call the no-bill, which is basically the status quo, and we compared it to the People's Choice. We did this using what we call the preliminary engineering report, or the traffic projections contained in the preliminary engineering report. And we compared the synchro analysis of of all 3 alternatives, and then we summarized them. That was a technical memorandum that was included in your agenda package. The outcome of that, the summary, was that we saw an improvement over the no-build option with the People's Choice, and there was clearly a decline in delay times, a decline in the number of vehicles denied entry into the system, but the loop alternative clearly shows as a better alternative. So that was, as a result of this analysis, we feel like this is a validation of our process, and the alternative that was voted on and approved by the CRTPA back in 2012. Is there any questions about that?
Commissioners?
No, sir, this is just informational.
Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple questions. First question is, I understand that the assessment by the FDOT is that your alternative is better, which I appreciate you going through the process of assessing both to figure out which one you thought was better. But quite frankly, I think the citizens that have come here to speak are very interested in moving in the direction of the people's choice. The question I have is specific to if we decided as a board, and I know this is an update, it's not an action item, but if we decided as a board to move in the direction of the people's choice, what does that mean as far as the funding is concerned? I think the conversation we had last time was around whether or not the people's choice option was deemed to be a large enough scale to where if we went in that direction, we would lose the funding completely. Is that in fact the case here, or is it not efficiency, but a effectiveness scale that you're looking at as well? So what if this board decided to move in a different direction? What would be the result of such? And if the result is that we would lose the funding, what would the reason be for?
Let me first address that, Commissioner Maddox, by saying that we are currently funded for right-of-way in current year. So
understand.
Our right-of-way funds are committed. We hope to have them expended by the end of this fiscal year, which is June.
Understand.
So that being said, the construction is not funded. The next steps for the CRTPA, if they were to go that route and were to vote for a different alternative, then the DOT would have purchased property that we end up not using for the alternative. If you're suggesting that we could be used as a sort of interim fix, that's a whole other project. We have to go back and look and see if that meets the purpose and need of the current PD&E. But in terms of actually losing, quote unquote, losing funding, the funding is already committed. It's already on the project.
Well, it's more so not losing funding. I understand where we are in the process. It's more of delayed the construction side of it. I understand that we brought the right away, but as I remember it, the project itself, the People's Choice, used less right-of-way than what was purchased by FDOT, so it wouldn't be an additional acquisition of right-of-way. Matter of fact, it would be less right-of-way acquisition. I know you're in the process of doing such. So it was more of the question of if we decide that we want to go with the People's Choice, it wouldn't be more of an issue of right-of-way as much as it is, does it delay the process of construction funding that we're looking forward to sooner than later?
In terms of where the CRTPA is prioritizes, then it wouldn't necessarily jeopardize the construction project itself, but we'd have to look and see if it meets the purpose and need of the PD&E study.
So technically, we could move in that direction, in the direction of the People's Choice, without any penalty as far as funding or timing is concerned?
I would not say that. I would say that if you meet the purpose and need of the PD&E, then you can still look at that as an alternative.
Does the People's Choice meet the purpose and need?
It does not. We have a preferred alternative vetted through the process, and it has a better traffic analysis.
And that opinion comes only from FDOT, hasn't been vetted by anybody else?
I mean, we have consultants, we have peer review consultants that vet this.
I understand. Thanks, sir.
Commissioner William Cox.
We have our engineer here who's done the analysis. If you want to have a specific question about the data.
Yeah. Folks, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Commissioner Maddox.
Could you go a little bit in the comparison and tell us, explain to us the specific parts that does not meet what you're trying to do here on the People's Choice side of it?
So just real quick, for the record, my name is Dave Mahon with VHB.
State your name for the record, please.
You just did.
Again,
you were reaching for the
Dave
Mulholland.
Mulholland.
Can you say it again, because I didn't hear it?
Sure. My name is Dave Mulholland with VHB, supporting DOT. In terms of the response to the question, in terms of timing and process and procedure, the department has accepted back in 2012 the PUR and the locally preferred alternative. If the department, as part of the recommendation, is to go back and evaluate it, it is going to slow the process down to go back and coordinate with Federal Highway, coordinate with the state to make sure that the process and procedure is acceptable according to the purpose need that was established back in 2012. So it could be a significant delay. And what does that mean for the funding? If the funding is actually under the delay and goes into a reevaluation process, it could actually push the funding out where the funding is reverted to something else in the future. So It's more of a procedural question at that point in terms of your timing answer. In terms of the locally preferred alternative or the loop alternative versus the people's choice, yes, it's less right-of-way in terms of the people's choice. However, looking at it from an operational standpoint, in terms of flowing it and making the traffic operations work, we looked at the analysis, considering everything that was done back in 2012, 2013, maintained a consistency so we actually had an apples to apples and did not jeopardize the approval process back then, and came to the conclusion that the loop alternative was actually a better and more preferred alternative than the people's choice.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, Commissioner William Cox.
Thank you for the information. My question is, have you all had any conversations or meetings with the people who live in that area? Not from way back 2012, because those people are either not there, new people come in, but have you all had an opportunity to meet with the people who were part of submitting the People's Choice?
I'm not sure specifically, but we have had two public meetings in 2015 and 2016, so I'm not sure specifically who is
Since September?
No, ma'am, we've not had a public meeting since then.
Okay, so I guess my question is, I don't dispute what your data reflects. I'm a data person myself, I understand that, but short of the people who actually live there and the impact that your data and this process has on them, I'm not sure how you can be so absolute in your conclusion. I would hope that there would be some conversation with the neighbors who've taken the time to put together another plan, to not just say to them that we've determined that our plan is better, but to have a conversation and a meeting with them to explain those data points and why you've drawn your conclusion. I think that, for me, that would be a better way to do that. I live on the south side, and I travel that way as well. I have some concerns. I share some of the concerns of some of the constituents who presented last month in September. So I would hope that, engineers, developers, planners would talk with the folks in the community now. See, the problem that we have is that we do that work on the front end in 2015, but those people who you talk to then may not be there anymore. And so the data has to be freshened. It has to be refreshed so that we can make sure we're making the best decision going forward, because even now, we're not going to start construction today. It's going to be down the road. So you're going to have even more different people when the construction time actually occur. So my point is this: people have to play into your decision, and you have to talk to them. They're not data points, they're people. And so I would hope that we would have an opportunity, you would have an opportunity to meet with them, not just a public meeting where whoever's coming, a called meeting with the citizens. They've taken the time to put together another plan. They didn't just draw this on scratch paper. They took the time to do this. And so I think they deserve an opportunity to talk with you as to why you believe that the preferred plan is better than the People's Choice.
Yes, ma'am, we have contact information, and we are a public agency. We're willing to talk to anybody who gives us a call.
And many of them are in the room today. I see them, and I know they're waiting to talk about it. So you're going to hear from them today. So I think that this is the beginning of the conversation. So listening to them, and you'll know that they are concerned. They're really concerned, and they would like to have an opportunity to talk with you about the plan.
Yes, ma'am. Like I said, we're a public agency. All of our contact information is in the public domain, and we're willing to talk to anybody who wants to give us a call.
And because I know that state projects are contingent upon funding by the Florida legislature, it may be committed today, but anything could happen where it's no longer available. So we know that it's contingent because it's annual, annual based. So we want to keep that in mind as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Merritt.
Three things. I used to be a public works director for the county, so I sympathize with you being considered the principal designer of this project. Number two, does DOT do a cost-benefit analysis when it decides which option is the best one?
Well, the PD&E looks at different alternatives and weighs them against various things, including cost-benefit analysis, but other things like safety and performance, the operational performance of the loop.
What I'm saying is if the loop alternative, obviously the numbers ran through whatever computer model you got are much better than the People's Choice or the no build, and I assume
more
you
expensive
compare...
and works better is what you're getting at, I think.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And number three, the Woodville Highway project, I'm assuming that this loop is also tied to the 4-lane section to Capitol Circle, right? They're not two separate projects. So if this board votes to stop and we want to look at the people's choice instead, I'd bet you 1 in a million this project will never get built, if I had to guess, just from talking to people.
I don't have a crystal ball, but that's probably a fair assumption, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, let's make our comments, I see them, pretty brief, because we got a lot of speakers, and I'm looking at the time. Time is running out. So, Commissioner Minor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rodney, is it?
Yes, sir.
To kind of take a step back and take a look at this whole situation, there have been some specific concerns from the public about the extended loop, the elongated loop alternative. But there's also the general thing that we hear from the public that it's just confusing. And so the main issue, I think, for the CRTPA here is like it's not the optimal solution. I don't think anyone here is enthusiastic about this solution. But the main thing is like, is this the best alternative to what we have? You know, and so my question to you really is: are there similar elongated loops that maybe DOT has worked with in the past, or maybe Mr. Mulholland has, that we could take a look at that have already been constructed, and try to get a sense for what that community might feel about that loop? Because that, in my mind, sure, there's some specific issues with this proposal, but the general one I hear is just confusion just driving around the loop. If there are other communities that have built something similar, it'd be interesting to know what their experience has been now that it's been constructed and used.
Sure. I mean, it's a large roundabout, more or less. Geometrically, it's a loop, but it functions as a roundabout, which means it's one way. Of course, we just constructed one. DOT just constructed one just south of here, which for our district, District 3, is a tough sell. We do have difficulty selling the virtues of a roundabout in various places that some other districts don't have that same difficulty. That being said, it's a matter of education. We have put together a video we brought with us today. We'll put that on our website for this project and show some of the movements. We plan to sign it. I think there's two separate things on these transportation projects, especially when we talk about interchanges or something like this. It does have a somewhat complex geometry, and that is when you look at it in a plan view and you look at it, on 11 by 17 in that scale, it does look confusing. And you're talking about, Adams Street was two-way, now it's one-way. Woodville was once two ways, now it's one way. But then there's the reality of when you're on the ground. There's a whole different scale you have as you're driving. You're looking out your windshield, and you're getting signage, and driver expectation starts to kick in at that point. And it may seem unnatural when you're looking at a plan view to go north to head south, but when you're in the midst of it, it's a lot more intuitive.
Do you have any type of documentation of public input before and after a project like that? I think it'd be helpful for us to kind of get a sense. It's like if there's a community that has been through a similar issue or a similar design, I imagine they may have had concerns prior to construction as well. But it'd be helpful to kind of see if you have any materials about that, any kind of feedback from the public about a project like that. That could be really helpful for us.
Okay, I can think of a few that would probably be very.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we've got a number of speakers, but because the discussion has already jumped in here, I am struggling with this issue because on one side, transportation projects will always take a long time. And if we have to be very, very careful when we change projects, particularly after a lot of money has been spent. That's our responsibility from my perspective on tax dollars and public funding, but it's also, I don't personally believe we're hearing from everyone in the area, and I have a hard time assessing kind of where we are on this project without redoing, and Commissioner Williams, I understand your concern about holding public meetings again, but at some point we have to just start a project, and it's still going to take many years after that. So we could always improve the way we do public communication. I think we have done a great job. Cite the Midtown meetings recently. Thank you all. CRTPA staff and others for doing that. So I think we're doing a good job with that, but at some point we just got to move forward. The other thing I'm concerned about is that the safety issues and other types of issues like that were assessed during PD&E and the other options, and I think we've said in this meeting several times over the last few months, none of us who were sitting here were excited about really any of the options. I mean, we delved into this a good bit, and we had similar concerns about the loop. I myself, and I think we had a discussion about this at the last time this came up, or maybe 2 meetings ago. I think we should look at improving South Meridian Street off of Tram Road because there might be increased traffic getting into the neighborhood through that direction now that the loop's there. So there may be other local roads that we could help mitigate the impact. With all of that, though, I really have concerns about all of us calling this the people's choice. With due respect to all those who have worked so hard for this, I've not received hundreds of emails as I have on other issues and things like that. This is an enormous change. One way for Gaston and Calhoun was an enormous change, just to add to Rodney, your examples there. But just recently, we looked at a long elongated loop, thank you for that term and the reminder there, in Midtown. And we were kind of surprised, is that right, Greg, that there wasn't as strong a pushback as we anticipated. I don't think we're going that direction. I don't want to scare anybody with that because there are other limitations in that area that I don't think exist in this loop. So I just wanted to voice these concerns at this moment because, as Commissioner Merritt said, and questions were brought, we have put a lot of money into this in the process that is typical, and it will always take several years after we say go to get through right away and to see any kind of construction funding. And if we are going to start to upend projects, there may be some every once in a while that just circumstances dramatically change. I don't think this is one of them. And we have to be committed to the long-term vision as best we can. So appreciate your efforts on that, and I know this has been complicated, and it's good to reflect on all this. So I'm not sorry for the conversation, but I just hope we can keep pushing this forward. 4-lane for Woodville, and this area is critical for us. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dozier. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to go into the public comment phase of this discussion. So at this point, I'm going to call Cheryl Collier-Brown. You're recognized. 3 minutes.
Cheryl Collier-Brown, 217 West Brevard Street. First of all, I would like to thank Commissioner Cox Matters and Commissioner Manor for considering how we feel. Now, as I sat here and watched and listened to the gentleman, I don't feel that they're being empathetic to our concerns. I understand. I'm the first one. Commissioner Cox knows I'm a traffic person. But that erroneous, maybe that's the wrong adjective I'm using, is not viable for us over in the South Side. I don't live over there, but I'm over there all the time. So you coming here saying that it's going to take a little bit more time, so what? It should be something else that you can do to satisfy us over there. Then you hold these meetings in the middle of the day, and then you have some people that may want to come and cannot come. Even though I know that I've attended other meetings and nobody come, but I don't feel that we're getting the just our due with this particular item. And I don't want to take up a lot of time because maybe some people have some technical information they want to share with you, but at this point, I am very, very upset. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Gerald Jackson.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Gerald Jackson, 4424 Anastasia Court, Tallahassee, Florida. I do disagree with the issue that this is complex or too complex for the community. The issue that I have and members of the community I live in is that it is going to disrupt the traffic flow. In the analysis did not take into account the disruption of the traffic that's going to happen as a result of having Adam not be able to go north and Monroe not being able to go south. For me, it's going to cause me to go all the way up from Monroe at Gale, all the way up to Capitol Circle, then come back around down Crawfordville Road, where I wouldn't have to do that before. Now, that's not taken into account. Any analysis that's done well would take that into account. I've done analysis, so I understand, and I understand data. But what I haven't seen is the fact that you've taken the comments into consideration. It's not that it's too complex, it's that it's disrupting. That needs to be taken into account. What is the traffic going to be like going all the way up to Capitol Circle and then coming down? Is that going to impact the traffic coming off of Woodville? That hasn't been answered. That needs to be answered. We live in this community. There are businesses in this community that's going to be impacted. Just like on the north side of town, when you had that one direction, one-way overpass. Those businesses going on the north side had to close down. That's a fact. I know that because I lived over there. So we need to take into account the input of the residents because we are impacted. It's not too complex. And it's not an issue of just because it doesn't fit into the overall plan. The purpose of these plans is to provide accessibility and improvement for the residents that are impacted, all of the residents that are impacted, not just a subsection. I think that the people's choice needs to be looked at. And in a comment that was made about not having a lot of input, the communications that were provided were poor. When you're making communication in terms of the area that you're impacted, use the communication media that the people in that area use. That was not done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Next speaker is going to be Mr. Peter Razalov.
Peter Razalov, 116 West 6th Avenue, and I'm back here to talk about the agenda item. So great comments from commissioners. So, Dozier? So you brought up safety, and I very much share that concern. Commissioner Williams-Cox, I'm also concerned for the residents in the project area, not just for economic impact, but safety. If we have cars going through storefronts, that's a problem. If you look here in the memo, you see the projects are judged by a few measures suggesting the loop alternative is better. But the measures all point to one thing. How quickly can cars move through the area, assuming they're all driven well? That is, that drivers can negotiate the weaves and the turns and navigate properly. If there's a crash, this whole system shuts down for everyone. So this, I need to emphasize, the opposition of the project is largely concerns about safety and concerns about equity and economic opportunity. This is a discussion of values. This is not something that can be resolved with a simple cost-benefit analysis. It requires leadership. And to the board, I'm calling on you to know what our priorities are, what they should be, and to make the right call when you are called to decide where this project should go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Razalov. Mr. Michael McLaughlin.
Hello, my name is Michael McLaughlin. I'm at 100 Cadiz Street. And I just wanted to say that this project seems very fine and all in terms of data. I just want to bring back to the forefront of all of our minds, and several other speakers have, that residents are not data. And even though I don't live on the south side, I have lots of friends who live or who commute through that south side, and I know that their quality of life and the way in which they experience that space that is that particular area in south side is not simply determined by how fast they can zip through there, but that the quality of life that they will experience driving through that area, and as well as going to stores, going to the tax collector's office and such, will be impacted by kind of the space that exists and the ways in which that street transforms their neighborhood. And I don't think these data, as nice and neat as they are, don't necessarily speak to that, and I want to bring that up. And so I stand here and ask you to strongly consider the People's Choice as a serious, viable alternative. And I also want to bring two of my friends, Satya Stark-Bainar and Glenn Perry, also residents of the South Side, and although they could not be here, they wish me to say that they both denounce the swear-about and much prefer the People's Choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Mr. Bill Proctor.
Chairman, Commissioners, I was thinking about your President of these United States telling the nation that if you don't bend to my direction, it's some money that you ain't going to get. It's the same argument that DOT is telling you all. You don't bend to their direction, there is some money that you ain't going to get. No one on the South Side called DOT and asked them for what they're trying to gift us with. Nobody signed a petition asking for this elongated roundabout, but more than 400 people have signed a sheet of paper saying that they don't want this roundabout. Now, the issue today is simple. These people from Chipley did not come over to the meeting that I had, both in Woodville and at that, what's the name of that church, y'all? New Hope. We had a New Hope meeting. And Mr. Slay came and represented at both, but Chipley would not come over here. Now, you all represent us. We vote for y'all. Chipley don't represent us, and Chipley is working against us. And it's not right that somebody put on a plaid shirt and is an engineer and two people come up here and talk all of the people down to the South Side. None of us are valued. It matters to me that my daddy can leave the house, and sometimes I'm proud that he got back home. But to send my daddy down to Publix from where he lives and him to negotiate which way and is he going to get back home, this is a problem. But it ain't just for my daddy. It's for everybody else's daddy and mama who's lived over there for 1,000 years. I lived on Ridge Road, North Ridge Road, since Moses was a little boy. And the pattern of which our traffic flows is common to the citizens over there. Don't let Chipley come over here and talk us down for something that we don't want. If DOT was looking out, they would do what this commissioner from Wakulla, Mr. Merritt, said. They have not finished Crawfordville Road. Finish that and take it down to the county line, the way 316 North Side goes all the way up the Georgia line. If they wanted to do something, Adams Street stops at its widest point there at the post office. Why don't you widen it and go on up the street and come over the hill if they wanted to find something? If they wanted to find something to do, I recommend that they would do Spring Hill Road. And, Mr. Chairman, I would also recommend they get busy on Capitol Circle around out there by the airport. There's a lot for them to do other than to come down there, confuse us, and force you to accept money on their terms, and you not hear the people who've supported you. And we're asking you to hear from the people who vote for you. We don't vote for them. They work for hire, but we vote for you. Now, if you're unable to represent the people here who have voted for you, and you cave in the same way in which our president sought to pressure people abroad to receive money, then shame on y'all. I'm asking you all to do. I'm just asking you to flex up a little bit and to do something unconventional. Don't listen to FDOT. Listen to the people. Listen to the people's idea of the people's choice. Take this money, man up, woman up, stand up for the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Proctor. Sue Ellen Gardner.
Hello, I'm Sue Ellen Gardner. I did want to, 4606 Tall Oak Drive, Tallahassee, Florida. I did want to say before I begin that this is indeed the people's choice, because not only do I'm saying that because not only because I live over there, but I knocked on doors. I went to 4 Points Avenue and went to those people's houses and knocked on doors. I stood there and had discussions with hundreds of these in my hand. I've gone to the neighborhood where my daughter's father lived, or my neighborhood, which we all live right there on the south side. And I've spoken to the people. And although our culture is kind of different, we're not, going to reply to every email or take maybe the 30 minutes out the day to email you all on this issue. Trust me when I say that it is their choice. They are in support of this option, and nobody, not one person I've spoken to is in support of the super roundabout, which that's what I'm calling it. I received the report composed by the independent contractor, VHB. While I'm unsure of this firm's previous affiliation to the super roundabout plan, I am certain that VHB is often consulted with for projects in this district. At no surprise, their report concluded that the super roundabout option provided significantly greater operations during future 2035 design year. However, to be clear, their comparisons measured the speed in which a vehicle traveled through the area. Their findings show that the super roundabout plan allows for more vehicles to travel the area quicker. They used the cycle length developed for the super roundabout plan to evaluate the People's Choice Plan, as if the super roundabout's signal cycle length was also developed for and applicable to the People's Choice Plan. This fact alone creates the illusion that of greater traffic operations. With the super roundabout's elimination of traffic signals at pertinent intersection, of course, more cars will pass through quicker. That's just an obvious fact, because the super loop took out traffic signals. So that delay is gone. So of course they will travel through quicker. However, the question was never how many cars can travel this area the quickest. That was never our question. The study was supposed to determine the validity of the People's Choice option versus the capacity for future growth. And in essence, the report's findings did indeed validate that the People's Choice option would provide the road coverage needed for any future influx. For the people of the South Side and daily commuters, our problem with the super roundabout is the unfair demands it puts on the immediate areas, asking us to literally travel loops every time, on every trip, in that direction. Undoubtedly, more cars will need to travel the area quicker because the super roundabout herds all the vehicles from Woodville, Crawfordville, and the surrounding neighborhoods through it on lanes heading in one direction. Further, with this plan, neighborhood accessibility from east to west and west to east, movement from Ridge Road to Gale Avenue and vice versa is non-existent. For example, I have a girlfriend that lives in Crawfordville Trace community. Her daughter attends Fairview Middle School. When dropping her daughter off, her normal route is to come down Crawfordville, make a right onto Gale Avenue, and make a right onto Trim Road, then a left onto Zalia Street. She will now have to contend with all the other travelers traveling at the same time down the same road in this extended loop formation. This report inadvertently alludes to the fact that not only is the super roundabout creating a problem, but also attempts to hoodwink us under the guise of quicker travel times. In the problem it creates, disguised as a solution.
Ms. Gardner, could you
Wrap it up? Yes, I am, sir. I got just a little bit more. The fact is, the only people that will benefit from the super roundabout plan are those traveling from the southeast communities and areas, the Southwood community, and the future development of Tram Road. It seems that has been the intent and agenda of this ridiculous plan all along. Bear with me, I'm almost done. As a District 1 constituent, I pose the question, is that right for a whole community to be inconvenienced for the convenience of a selected few?
Okay.
Lastly, the outstanding question of funding is still looming. I know Mr. Rodney, forgive me, I missed your first name, kind of spoke around that question, but I didn't hear the answer. It sounded like to me your answer was it could be significantly delayed, however, not a guaranteed loss of funding. That's what I heard. I don't know.
Ms. Gardner,
okay, I'm closing it right now. Now that we are certain the People's Choice Plan will accommodate future growth projections, cost less, and provide access to the surrounding communities, it's obvious to me that there is no other choice.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you very much. We have heard that's information.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner.
I understand that there's no action today, but I want to go back to my the question I had about whether they had met with these citizens, especially the ones who came here and spoke today. I don't think that it would be too much to ask to at least have a conversation with them. I understand what you're saying. I understand what they're saying. But I think that you all need to come together and understand what each other is saying so that when it is time for us to take action here, we are in a better space because they're correct. We are elected to represent them, and we're going to go back to them for their support. And I want to make sure that I provided the support as best I could with the information that was available. So I really need you all to talk to them.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Yes, Commissioner.
Quickly, I know you're trying to get through a meeting. As I understand it, though, there's no point unless we ask for it to come back for us to take any more action on this project, correct?
Mr. Executive Director.
I'm sorry.
At what point will we take further action on this project? There is no other point for us to take action, right?
No, sir, we put this on as a follow-up to. We didn't put it as an action item. It's the board's discretion.
Mr. Chair, real quick, I do think there's a void in there between what these citizens are saying, what FDOT is saying. I do think there's some merit there to them sitting down together if they hadn't already, for some understanding of exactly what the purpose of the PD&E of the project is, whereas one is talking about moving cars, the other one is talking about accommodating the community and their needs. And so I agree with you, Commissioner Williams-Cox, on that. And I was tempted to make a motion to ask for something to come back, but I'm willing to give FDOT and the citizens an opportunity without us taking a formal motion asking for it to get together just for some understanding and maybe a report back, whether it be by email or presentation to us on what kind of conclusions they came to. These numbers are definitive that they placed on the screen. They're very definitive in what the best alternative is when it comes to moving cars. But it sounds like to me those folks that are in support of the People's Choice aren't as interested in those numbers and how definitive they may be. And so there's some confusion there on where we're trying to get to and why we're trying to get there. I don't think there's any harm in asking it to meet and report back to us on what comes out of the meeting. Even if it's absolutely nothing, I like to see what comes out.
Thank you, Commissioner Maddox, Commissioner Matlow.
Yeah, thank you. Following up, I guess, really on that same line of questioning, because it seems like we're having two separate conversations. And one conversation is about getting cars from one area through another, and the other conversation is about, we live right here in this area, and we want to know how functional this can be for our personal space. And I think we're going to just continue to come up and butt heads and not be able to find a solution. I do agree the likely scenario that happens if we decide to reverse course is this project just won't get built. And I think that's a conversation also worth having with the neighborhoods and DOT of how it's needed for the area and how that area should really be redeveloped in the future. Is that specific section at capacity now?
No, sir.
Okay. And how many years out will we project that to be at capacity?
I think the original PD&E showed it in 2035 be over capacity, though the traffic projections have not been what we anticipated. We're starting to see development activity out Tram in the Southwood area and stuff. So those are the things I think was originally what was driving this, and then the growth in Wakulla County as well.
Okay. And that's the second thing I struggle with is with the capacity being so far out and seeing other projects like Orange Avenue that gets brought up a lot, and the pedestrian access and just getting cars through that area. The other day, I went to speak to some students at NIMS, and it took me about 8 minutes to cross the road because of the traffic was so backed up and nobody would stop. So just for the ranking and when we talk about projects and prioritization and what's needed and what the community's asked for, that is a project that I hear asked for a lot to get some work done over there on Orange Avenue. So in the event that this project doesn't continue, I know that would be giving away right-of-way funds that are already committed and probably sacrificing those, and those may not come back to our area. But we have to be, to me, open to that possibility if we can't really come up with a solution that the community can get behind. And if that is the case, I would advocate for trying to get Orange Avenue moved up the list. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, on point.
Thank you, Commissioner Maddox. Just a minute. Let me just make this comment. I may have to leave. My county commission has a workshop, very vital workshop at 4 o'clock, so I'm going to sneak out of here, and the vice chair is going to handle the meeting from this point on, because we have a lot of speakers. So having said that, so when I slide out, you know why I'm leaving. I'm also the chair of the county commission, so I got to go around that meeting.
On point, just real quick, on point, FDOT has committed to, and this, I was just talking to Brian on the side over here, they have committed to sitting down with the people from the People's Choice at the community center or wherever have you, to talk about what their interests are versus the People's Choice interests, and see if they can come to some common ground, or at least some common understanding about where each other stays. And I appreciate them doing that, because as I understand it, Brian told me they have not met yet, but they are committing to doing that meeting if the People's Choice is willing to do so. Thank you, Mr.
I would think, thank you, Commissioner Maddox. I would think that's a very good idea, because I am not hearing an impasse right now, so it's still in a conversational phase, and I will encourage that tremendously. Okay, all right, Commissioner Proctor. Commissioner Dozier. Okay, she's into Commissioner
Real quick,
Merritt.
since we're capital regional transportation, I want to make sure Wakulla gets voiced in here. My main concern is getting my citizens back and forth to work. So please don't lose track of that in everybody's conversation. We have tens of thousands of people trying to get from Crawfordville to Tallahassee every day trying to work. So don't lose sight of that too, please.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Dr. V. I think Commissioner Matlow kind of summed up where we are. It's tension between local neighborhood concerns and the through traffic, and that is fair. Although I'm grateful it was never directed at me. Ms. Cheryl Brown, I see you looking. It gives me flashbacks to Fairview here. I heard the tone, yes, ma'am. And good friends can disagree at times. So I think I very much respect the efforts of DOT, of this board now and in the past, and of the citizens that are going door to door and really working on this. There are not many easy decisions that we make, particularly when it comes to transportation planning and something like this. So I am thrilled if there's a conversation that could happen, updating, the reasons for the project, but just reflecting on that, this was a hard one from the beginning. So thank you for that. I think we're in the right posture for now. Mr. Chair, my one other question here is, if I heard correctly, and respecting your commission's workshop at 4, is there also a workshop in this room at 3:30?
At 3:30, yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So we have, and I guess I'd like some direction, Greg, on this, because we have dealt with some pretty significant issues. We have significant issues remaining on the agenda. And I kind of would also like to say that this is one of several times in recent memory where we've run up against a hard stop for a workshop in this room. With all due respect, we're happy to be at City Hall for this meeting. This is good. We can televise it. I think there's all kinds of reasons to be in this room. But we don't have time to reflect on it today, but at the next meeting, I would very much like to talk about the time of our meeting. We've heard comments about maybe needing to move it later so more folks can join us after work, but also how we schedule this meeting. If we are telling folks at City Hall that we only need 2 hours, that is obviously not true. None of our meetings have hit 2 hours recently unless we had to stop. So, Greg, I'm just wondering where we are on the agenda, because I don't want to go too quick over financials or anything else.
I think we have 6 more items on the agenda.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. We can hold off on the financial statements. I would like to get the work program amendments, UPWP amendments, excuse me. Let's close this out real quick.
Okay. I thought we were closing this out. I'm sorry.
I think we already closed this out because we've come to an agreement that there is still conversation to go on between both parties, FDOT and the people. Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I make an agenda modification real quick?
Yes, Commissioner Maddox.
As you said, Greg, I think the UPWP, I think, needs to be done, as well as items F and G probably need to be done in
We definitely need to do C, D, F, and G, yes.
I make a motion to approve item 7C.
Second.
Is there any comment from?
There is a motion and a second. Commissioner Dozier, comment.
I was asking if our executive director had any comments before we took
No,
vote.
just real quickly, I'll just run through the 4 of them briefly, if I can pull it back up here. The first is in partnering with Star Metro to assist them in what's called a comprehensive operations analysis. That's looking at their day-to-day operations, potential improvements in efficiency and things like that. The next item, going back to our previous discussion, would be a Thomasville Road multi-use trail feasibility study. We want to kind of use this, Commissioner Dozier, about your question earlier, as kind of a pilot to work with that group that we talked about, developing that, seeing if there are any fatal flaws, and eventually move that into a PD&E and/or design phase. The same with the Bloxham Cutoff State Road 67 trail. That's continuing the development of the Capital City to the Sea trails by extending a trail from the St. Mark's Trail over to Wacella Springs State Park. And then the final one, this is one we talked about a couple times over the years, basically taking a deep dive into the Stadium Drive intersection at North Lake Bradford. FSU has expressed some concerns about this area. There's been a lot of apartments added in that area in the last few years. You've got a tremendous amount of pedestrians and what probably amounts to a bad intersection design. So we want to take a hard look at that to see if there's some ways to make some improvements.
Motion stands.
I have just been informed that we have this room until 4 p.m., that the workshop does not start until 4 p.m. So we can actually...
Slow down.
No. You can slow down. I'm about to, in 10 minutes, I will leave so that that'll give me enough time to transition from here to Gaston County.
Make sure you don't go through any roundabouts.
Why? Because it's too long?
On the way to Gaston County.
Okay. Mr. Executive Director.
We do have a motion and a second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor show by the sign of vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next item, sir.
Mr. Chair, move staff recommendation on item D.
I'm sorry, item what?
D.
I'll second that.
Okay, there is a motion and a second for item D. Question. Hearing none. All in favor, show by the sign of vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm sorry, yeah, Mr. Chair, can we let our executive director comment on the
Okay,
items,
yes, I
please?
will
Thank
take
you
it.
before
I
the
will
vote.
take it because by the time I saw his hand, my mouth was already in gear.
It passed. It passed. It's that recommendation.
Just real quickly, this is basically a three-party partnership between CRTPA, the City of Tallahassee, and DOT to construct sidewalks on about a half a mile or so section of Lunchtown Road. This is a project that's very needed. It's actually our number one TA project, so we're happy to see this one get moved forward.
That's between Thorpe and 90, right?
No, this one.
Highway.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
It's definitely needed there.
Mr. Chair, on item, I'm sorry, you ready, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Because I'm on item F.
You've gone to F?
Yes.
Okay.
On item F, there's not a city representative on the executive committee?
Oh, we do. We took care of that last.
Oh, okay. All right.
Mr. Matley reminded me after I forgot.
Okay, perfect. All right.
Okay.
So we've done item F?
We still need a chair, election of chair and vice chair.
So all I was going to do is ask for, I believe, who is the representative? Commissioner Matlow is? Correct?
No, this is for the board chair and vice chair.
I understand, but who's the executive committee representative from the city?
Commissioner Matley.
Yes. I will make a motion for Commissioner Matlow to be vice chair of the CRTPA.
Second.
And Commissioner Merritt to be chair.
That's automatic.
Of the CRTPA.
Thank you for your vote of confidence.
Okay, there is a motion and a second for Commissioner Matlow to be elected the vice chair of the CRTPA. All in favor, show by the sign of vote aye. Aye. Nay. Those opposed?
Congratulations.
Ayes have it. Commissioner Matlow, congratulations and welcome to leadership in CRTPA.
Well, thanks for asking for my opinion on that before.
Just a minute, Commissioner Matlow. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Matlow and Commissioner Merritt for serving. And
Didn't vote on me yet.
yeah, we did. It was part of the motion.
It's automatic.
You're together.
Made a motion together.
Yeah.
You did it so quick.
Yeah.
Good.
You snooze, you lose, man.
There's no getting out of it now. You're locked in. Yeah.
No, I'm going on to G, an effort to keep us moving, as you've been reminding us so much. I think we have been served exceptionally well by Commissioner Maddox as our MPOAC representative. With due respect to the voluntold opportunities that we all have, I would like to ask Commissioner Maddox, are you interested in serving again? If so, I'd like to make a motion.
I can second that. The chair can second, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
I'll move for Commissioner Maddox to continue as our MPOAC.
okay, there is a motion and a second for Commissioner Maddox to continue with his role as the representative of MPOAC. All in favor, show by the sign of vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
We need a
And
Commissioner Williams.
And since she's not in the room, her representative is here. I recommend that we keep Betsy, Commissioner.
Just a minute.
Real quick,
Okay.
I traded some text with Ms. Barfield today
Oh.
to check and see if she wanted to continue, and she said if there was someone else that wanted to, she'd be happy.
I'll actually ask Commissioner Dozier.
Commissioner Dozier.
I would be happy to serve as your alternate. Thank you.
Well, okay.
But if someone else would like the...
Well, I didn't know if we wanted both representatives to be from the same county. That's the only, after I said that, I thought about it.
Oh,
I'd make a motion to keep Betsy then.
I second it.
okay. There is a motion and a second to keep Commissioner Barfield as our alternate. All in favor, show by the sign of vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Text her the good news.
I will.
That's sometimes you have to pay that when you're not present.
One more item, one more minute.
She did send her apologies. She got held up, I guess, on a trip back from, she was, I think she said in Houston. I don't know where she was.
One more item.
Do we want to go back into FDOT report?
In the interest of time, I'll pass on any updates.
Thanks, sir.
Are we going to do the financial statements or no?
If we have a half an hour? Or no?
That's up to you all.
Mr. Chair, I will actually ask that be pushed to the next meeting. I don't want to rush through that. Their financial statements.
Yes, and
we got
also...
a half an hour, but I mean, if it's at 4, even if we take 20 minutes, I want this room to be cleared, so I don't want to rush that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, on point for the financial statements, I concur completely with Commissioner Maddox. I think this one deserves some discussion. And if we could and I can make a motion to this effect if needed, Greg, but I would like to see some historical context of just how we've looked at our finances over time. I know you've got that for current, but I think there's been a lot of good improvement over time, but I'm not sure I fully understand how we started, if we've always been in the same posture, same relationship. I just like a little bit of historical context for that discussion.
Are you talking about
at our next meeting.
numbers-wise, increase, decreases?
How we manage our accounting, just the management and streamlining. I know not contained in this item, you've made a lot of improvements. So just, even if it's a brief summary, just a little bit of historical context.
So not necessarily financial statements, more of a description.
Yeah, I think we've got the audits and past agendas.
Mr. Chair.
Just a summary of how we manage our finances. That's all I'm saying. Yes,
As
thank
quick
you.
as I figure that out, I'll put something together.
Okay, thank you.
Sit down over just in time.
Don't you listen to that part, bro.
And you got the button. Go for it, Randy. There's a new sheriff. There's a new sheriff in town.
Yeah, new sheriff in town.
Okay. Meeting adjourned. Oh,
I got my report quickly.
Okay.
Just to go back and real quickly, I always like to say this on the financial statements and the audit. There's no money missing. Everything's accounted for. Everything else we'll deal with. Actually, a couple of items of good
Bills are
news.
paid, money's in
We
the
just
bank.
found out in the last week or so, the department has moved up the construction of the first or the next piece of Capitol Circle Southwest from Orange to Spring Hill in fiscal year 2021, which means that it'll start construction probably, I'd have to say, sometime early 2021. So we're a little over a year away.
All right.
They also moved up the section of the Coastal Trail from Tower Road to Wakulla High School. That will start in 2021 as well, so both of those projects will be proceeding.
that's through downtown Panacea.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yep.
The other item I want to bring up quickly, last year, you all voted to make some changes to the interlocal agreement to eliminate the weighted voting. Earlier this year, we started that process and had a little bit of an issue getting people to respond. So Wakulla County quickly responded. In the meantime, Leon County has appointed Commissioner Deloge as a member of the board. As Council and I were going through that, the original premise behind the changes was a one-person, one vote. That kind of throws a kink into that. If we kind of follow the way we've done it in the past, leaving the structure the way it is, each of the Leon County representatives would have 3/4 of a point for a vote. I had originally planned to put it on this agenda, but since it got lengthy, I decided to wait until January. But I at least wanted to give you all a heads up. We've kind of pulled that back. I'm going to put it on the agenda for January.
How many people does Leon County have now?
There's
Four, and Tallahassee has three?
Three, but it's still, we're under our old voting rules. They have the same amount of points apportioned between whether it's 4, 7, or
So that like put me in the twilight zone till the next meeting?
No, sir. It
Why don't we
stays.
make Brian a non-voting member?
Second.
Yeah,
Why don't we discuss it in January?
There's
Love you guys.
You know, my main
Love you
point was,
back.
my only point was that small counties get more representation. So whatever, how you accomplish that, I don't care.
And that's fine. We just, once we got into it, kind of thinking it through, nothing was coming up the way I think you all originally intended. So the main point is we kind of pulled that back and we're going to bring it back in January for more discussion. We are doing an event at Tallahassee's Winterfest for the Regional Mobility Plan. We're setting up a booth, hopefully trying to get some input on that. The first meetings we had didn't have a whole lot of people. We were a bit disappointed. So we're looking at some other ways to engage folks. We do appreciate those of you who put the notices out on your social media, Facebook, things like that. But that will be December 5th.
The parade?
Uh,
The parade
it's the
or
Winter
Winter
Fest.
Festival?
7th.
You're on 7th.
7th.
Saturday.
7th. Come out, look for us. Jack's going to be dressed up like Santa Claus. That's always it.
Oh, well. Pictures, please, video.
Is that it?
Volunteer for
Anything from members? I wondered, okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank Greg and everyone else that was involved in the Midtown Transportation Plan event. That was terrific. Really good turnout. The feedback that I got from people that were there was very positive. So thank you for this really great effort.
I just wanted to say, one of the highlights of my day is coming up from Wakulla and getting this nice free candy y'all give away here. A little slacking today, Greg, so
It is kind of thin.
address that.
We had two meetings, we had 2 meetings last week. You know, when we have a bunch of meetings, it kind of gets low. But we'll replenish by next
When you
meeting.
grew up where I did, you get free candy, you eat it till you're full.
Well, take all you want, we'll replenish.
Anybody else?
I got some marshmallow peeps at home that my daughter has. Like,
We're adjourned.